Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright.
Welcome back to the podcast, Curtis. If that is your real name.
Specifically inviting or welcoming me back.
Yeah, you didn't join me, so I was like, I guess I'm just saying it to you then.
Well, I thought you had like a full thought.
Welcome back to the podcast is a full sentence.
I didn't know who you were addressing it to.
The listeners.
The listener?
The listeners.
Our cat? Who you kicked out?
Yeah.
Right at the start of this? Because
Yep.
you were like, no one wants to hear what you have to say.
Because he's always meowing.
He has a lot to say.
And
maybe we need to give him that platform.
no. Another man with a podcast? No.
Yeah, what am I doing here? I'll leave. It's just you.
Yep. Just talk. I do both roles. You just hear shuffling steps as I go run to the other chair.
You would actually move. Why would you do that?
For the role playing.
I see.
So because I could have chemistry with myself.
You could just simulate it. You wouldn't actually have to get up. You could just like, isn't that funny?
That didn't sound real. On the playback, you're going to know that doesn't sound like little feet slapping against the hardwood.
I don't know how big or little my feet are.
I do.
They don't.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give everybody a little update because I've had some people ask me or comment about my roller derby stuff.
Yeah. Hey, I'll be the crowd. I'm a guy from the newspaper. Hannah, how's your roller derby going?
You're someone from the crowd, but you're announcing that you're a guy from a newspaper.
Because what they do at the press conferences, they're like, "Hi, I'm guy."
Yeah.
At the
WNBY.
Yeah, they announce what they're from.
27
so they know. So the person
News.
answering knows that they're giving the answer to them. So
okay.
I'm a local newspaper guy. I'm a guy from a local newspaper. How's your roller derby going?
Well, let me tell you, a guy from a local newspaper.
Answer the question. Stop dodging.
It's going is what I can say. We are getting to the end of the skate camp, and I'm going to have orientation next week to actually like join the league.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of the like head of recruitment of the league because I was like, hey, real talk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm barely on the rink. I'm mostly on the carpet.
They said we've never seen anyone skate like you. We're putting you in charge.
I was like, should I still show up? Like,
should I be here?
What should I be doing? And she was just like, oh yeah, you can just like keep practicing with us and like have like a non-skating position until you feel more comfortable. And I was like, okay, that does make sense. But I honestly thought, because they keep framing all of this as like there's an assessment at the end.
Yeah.
And you have to like, in order to start practicing some of the other derby skills, you have to like work your way through different levels of assessment. And I'm like, just ain't no way that's gonna happen. Like some of the stuff that they've said is on there. I'm like,
well, maybe it's, like you show up for the assessment thing, and then this is like the end of the sports movie. Where like the person who
I'm gonna do a training montage. Outside of
and then you show up and everyone's like, there's no way she's gonna do it, and then you skate the best anyone's ever skated. Yeah. And they're like, whoa.
They did say that if we even attempt the assessment, that we will get an actual sticker. So that might be worth the humiliation.
What? Now, define attempt. Does that mean showing up with the skates and pads on and be like, hey, I'm here for the assessment? And then immediately taking them off?
No, probably like have to do at least something. Okay. Which in my case would be like, I'm going to cling to the wall.
Yeah.
On the
do
rink.
A squat.
and I'm going to do some dynamic stretching.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to do a single watermelon or bubble skate, depending on what you want to call it, and I'm going to fall down.
You said things that I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm deep in derby now.
Yeah.
I'm so, like, you wouldn't even get it. I'm a sports girl now.
Yeah, I don't get it.
But it is very fun, and everyone has been very supportive.
Yeah.
Even though I'm struggling so hard.
I know this is not what they mean, but it is. There's a part of me that, like, this is a very funny way to look at it, where they're like, yeah, no, you can still do it as a non-skating.
Yeah.
No skating for you. You cannot be on skates. Hey, we've seen you. Return the skates.
You're a danger to yourself and others. Yeah. It's so bad. It's like, I truly am, like, not even confidently on the rink yet, which after how defeating the first week of derby was, I had changed my goal to have a practice where I don't cry.
Yeah.
And be on the rink.
Yeah.
I've done 50% of those because I haven't cried in a while.
You've got one more. Get on the rink. Yeah.
I mean, I've been on the rink. I just cling to the wall the whole time.
But that counts then. That's the rink.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yep.
I would be on the wall.
Yeah.
Because I can't skate. Anytime I've skated, either on ice or in a regular rink, I guess. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Wood rink.
Roller rink.
I guess. One of those fancy roller derby terms.
Oh, yeah, you know me.
Elitist. You're just trying to keep people out of it.
Totally.
But anytime I've ever skated, it has resulted in me falling forward or backwards or both. It's never been good. Yeah. There was one time where, because I don't know if they still do this, but I was at a roller skating rink, and I was, making my way around, built up a little bit of confidence, still on the outside edge. Sure. And it was one of those ones where there was, like, a wall on one long side and then one short side. Mm-hmm. And then the other long side had most of a wall, but it also had, like, entry points to get, because it was where all, like, the seating and stuff was. And then the other short side was where, like, some arcade games in the bathrooms and stuff were, so there was no wall there. Mm-hmm. And it was, just a roller skating rink, and I had built up some confidence. I was going around, and then the person that they had, like, DJing there, I guess it was, they could afford to have just a DJ there all the time, because there wasn't, like, a special event that I knew of or whatever. Yeah, there's a DJ at the roller rink. I don't know, like, if he's just like, yeah, now next up, yeah, this song. Anyway, they did this thing where he was like, all right, everybody, and now we're gonna do this, like basically, like, dance skating. So it was like, oh yeah, I was like, I was on the side of the rink halfway down the one where no exits were. Right. And you can't just, like, because, like, a flow gets established, right? Yes. I can't go against that. So I was like, I'm fucked. Because I'm, like, in the middle of this now. And I panicked. Trying to get around this thing. And I got almost there, and this is when I, like, comically, one leg just shoots out front, slam down. So, See,
if you ever, like, need to get off the rink, but you're scared, you just eat shit really hard on the ground, and then just, like, lay down as if you have been knocked unconscious.
Yeah, I kind of got to that point, but I just did the whole thing of, like, oh God, no, please. Pulling myself along the wall.
It was like me and my
as the dude in, like, fucking bell bottoms passes me for the fourth time, just like Boogie Nights song going on.
It's bringing me back to my first derby practice where I'm on the rink clinging to the wall, and at a certain point I just got down on all fours and just
crawling out of there.
Like, I couldn't do it anymore.
It's like you're storming the beach of Normandy, and you're like, I got it. They've yelled at you to get up and over the trench, and you're like, I'm in no man's land now. No one's coming for me.
My favorite thing about, and truly, like, the wonderful people in my league that are training and doing all the stuff, like, they're so great. I just really appreciate that after a certain point, we got into a groove where everybody else did something, and then I just kind of had my own side quest, and people just left me alone after a while. Like, occasionally someone would come and check on me and be like, that's looking good. Remember to stay low, Hannah. And
then skate away.
And then I'm just like, yup, here I am still trying to get the basic groove.
You're like, yeah, stay low. And then it, like, wide shot of you absolutely motionless, just standing there trying to not fall.
I'm so bad at roller skating. But you know what? I have almost, in a couple of days, I have my last skate camp practice, and I did it. I fucking did it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
Even if it takes me years to get on the rink.
That's what's important.
Yes. So anyway, that's my little update.
Yeah.
For anyone who is interested. Mm-hmm. And as terrible as I'm making it sound, it is fun.
Yeah.
It's just everything will also hurt, and you will be completely stripped down just to the most base levels of humiliation and defeat.
That's boot camp. You know,
yeah.
That's just boot camp 101 right there.
Yep.
They gotta break you down so they can build you back up.
Yep. Meanwhile, they're literally the nicest people in the world, but I'm just having an emotional crisis on the carpet of the rink.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, they're gonna break you down, strip you of everything you are, and then cut to them. They're like, did you drink enough water?
You're doing great. Make sure to take breaks. Literally them. And I'm just like sweat pouring down my face, sobbing.
I'm gonna die.
Screaming.
This is it.
Wow. But yeah. I'll periodically update you all. Maybe next time I talk about it, I will confidently be on the rink.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
You'll be skating. Yep. Well, let's get into the movie.
Movie time.
Yeah. We watched Hell House LLC.
Yep.
Every single time except for that one, I have struggled to say the name of this movie. There's too many L's in the title of this.
You find it hard to say?
Yeah. I stumble over Hell House. I feel like I don't put enough on hell. Mm-hmm. And then I get into the word house, and then my brain's like, go back. But I'm already in house, and then it's like, hell.
And then it hits you with the LLC.
Yeah, and then the LLC right at the end of it is just like another, like, oh, you thought you were done?
This is like me and Derby.
Get off the rink, kid.
You thought you could say something simple? Thought you could say words you know?
Yeah, we have a non-speaking role for you.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, it was interesting because I had thought I had maybe seen this movie before, but I wasn't positive. And then we sat down and started watching it, and like a minute in, I was like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
But then there was a scene, I'm going to say halfway through it, I don't actually know when it shows up. But then I was like, oh, I've seen this scene from this movie because you've watched it before. And I happened to be in the room when you were watching it. And I saw
it's
this
like one of the
it.
creepier parts.
Yeah. And I kind of saw it out of context. So like, I don't think it had as much of an effect on me at that point or whatever. But yeah.
Yep. So we can kind of get into it a little bit. It is a 2015 found footage supernatural horror movie. It was written and directed by Stephen Cognetti. And the cast of this, we have Ryan Jennifer Jones playing Sarah, Danny Bellini playing Alex, Gore Abrams playing Paul, Jared Hacker playing Tony, Adam Schneider playing Mac, And then we have a few, those are kind of our main crew, but we have a few other people. Alice Balke, Phil Hess, Lauren Kennedy, Jeb Krieger, and Miranda Robbins playing some of the more minor characters of the film. But yeah, basically the hook for this movie, it is a faux documentary that is following a group of Halloween haunted house creators as they prepare for the opening of their popular haunted attraction Hell House. But on opening night, an unknown quote-unquote malfunction causes the death of 15 tour-goers and staff. And then this faux documentary is revealing the lead up to the tragedy and kind of what really happened that night, because it's this public mystery that no one really knows the truth of what happened in Hell House.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this particular aspect about this movie, and that I generally like found footage films. Me too. I do think a lot of the times they're like hit or miss. Like, you've seen ones that are just like
real bad, but
then, you know, there's plenty of examples to point to, like Blair Witch Project. You and I both really like As Above, So Below. I think is one of the best ones that's been made.
Wreck, we also did that one.
Wreck is really good. So yeah, I think we have like a special place in our hearts for found footage films.
I do love a good found footage movie.
But I've also seen plenty of them where I'm like, hey, this is garbage.
I think it's also because found footage is one of those movie concepts that lends itself to a low budget. It's possible to make a found footage horror movie on just like a cell phone.
Yeah, well, and like horror movies already have lower budgets, generally speaking, and so then you lower it even more.
Yeah,
you know, so we're getting a bunch of
a lot of crap too.
Unknown actors and stuff who are breaking into the film industry, you know, and directors, basically anybody involved with the film a lot of times, you know. But anyway, one of the things that I really enjoyed about this movie was how they framed it with this faux documentary thing.
Yeah.
To me, I actually think some of the best parts of this movie are when we're doing the like talking head segments.
Yeah.
Where they're interviewing people. Some of them are a little bit more effective than others. Some of them feel like they're really playing it up to the camera a little bit more. But when they're doing it, because it does kind of feel reminiscent of like, you know, First 48 or these like crime shows or unsolved mysteries. Or, some stuff like that. Like, it really does kind of emulate that, I think, really successfully. And then you kind of forget that framing is there when they do show, you know, the segments of like when the crew is in the haunted house in the lead up, the several weeks or whatever, up to opening night for the haunted house. Yeah, I really liked whenever it cut back to them. Yeah. And there was the interviewer asking these people questions, and I was like, oh, this is like a fun way to get exposition about the world as a whole, but also like specifics about like some things that kind of went on down there,
right,
or inside Hell House on the night of or the leading up to, but like they didn't necessarily have answers to these things, without having one of the things that I think makes like worse found footage movies, where like the actors have to like over explain a thing on the camera, you know, as they're filming it or whatever. Yeah, it's people outside of who's on the camera.
Yeah,
I think it was a really cool way to do that.
I think it helps a lot, and I think it does kind of add a sense of like authenticity and immersion to it, because even though it's still kind of this like cheesy found footage, to your point, it also does feel like watching one of those true crime documentaries, and like that is how it is. Like, they're kind of over the top and you know, a little heavy-handed, and so you feel like, okay, maybe this is something that could have actually happened. I also think they use the witness/expert interview segments to really good effect early on in the movie in terms of creating suspense and setting expectations for what you're going to see. There's like a particular segment where they interview a journalist who, you know, he's like devoted his career to, you know, figuring out what happened, because like the police are being very tight-lipped about it, and it's his whole thing. And he like broke in, this is after the events of that night, and he took pictures. And they show some of these pictures that he supposedly took, and they look like the kind of like overexposed flash on like, a digital camera or something. And you see like blood spots and, like a door blown off its hinges in like a very unnaturally looking way. And meanwhile, the police are trying to make it sound like, oh, there was just some unfortunate prop malfunction.
Yeah.
And so it kind of creates this sense of like, I feel like as a viewer, it really gets you invested and you want to know what actually happened.
Yeah.
Which is good because you get that buy-in and then you're invested.
I do think they use all of those things to like great effect. That's not to say that I don't have like some issues with like the kind of world building of these things. I kind of give it a little bit of a pass in this one. I believe there's 4 total Hell House LLC movies now.
Yes, as of right now, there's 4.
So like in the first one here that we watched, I can kind of give them a pass because obviously the tragedy that happens on opening night for Hell House LLC hasn't occurred yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like I get that, but it isn't until I'm going to branch out and talk very briefly about the third one because I looked up a little bit of like the little plot synopsis thing or whatever to get you interested in it. It's not, I guess, until the third one where the town is talking about demolishing the building, and I'm like, why did we wait so long? Why did we wait so long, guys?
I don't know.
Because after the events of Hell House LLC, and the police definitely know that what they're saying is not true, despite what they want to tell people, out on the streets. They're just gonna let it stand.
I guess so.
That seems crazy to me. It's like, it's one of those things that like in these kinds of movies that it always comes up against. It's like, why aren't we just demolishing it? Why aren't we just getting rid of
Especially because the first movie very much leans into this idea that like the police know something about that night and they're keeping it from the public for one reason or another. So if we really buy that the police don't want the public to know the truth, wouldn't it make even more sense?
Yeah, just literally demolish it.
And then you eliminate the possibility of journalists going in there and further
They wanted to let it stand just long enough so that other people could get in there.
They were like, okay, we have an opportunity here. We can become like the weird town where a bunch of murder happened and get some tourists.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want to be the town where modern day a bunch of murders happened. Not like the charming 1800s Old West Saloon.
No. Current murder.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be on one of those
Oh, that happened
maps.
Last week. You must be here to tour the house. Hey, what?
The blood's still fresh.
Yeah.
Don't slip.
$25 and I'll give you a vial of it.
I mean, honestly, that is how people used to be with these crime scenes back in the day. Like before we really had like procedure in place to capture forensics and like secure a scene. You hear all these stories about old unsolved murders where it's just like, and then all the neighbors came in and they took pieces of the bedspread that this woman bled out on, and it's like, why are we all just traipsing through the house? But anyway,
it's a different time.
Yes, it was. It's the closest entertainment that they could get.
Yeah. I've already seen the one movie in the movie theater. What else am I going to do for the month?
I go to church already 3 times a week.
Yep.
I can't do a 4th. I can't.
I can't do a 4th, so I might as well steal the floorboards that are covered in my neighbor's blood.
Anyway, but Hell House LLC, it's interesting because we have, like we said, there's this framing of the documentary. The people who are making the documentary have like an exclusive interview with who they understand to be the only like surviving staff member of the tragedy, who hasn't done any public appearances or anything since this happened. And that's Sarah. And once they are asking her questions, Sarah produces the videotapes that they had filmed at the time.
Literally a sack just filled with loose videotapes.
Just
and
sort
she's
of a
like,
bag.
you can look through those.
Yeah. And she's being kind of squirrely. Like, they're like, well, what are we going to find on these? And she's like, you're gonna find the truth or whatever.
Yeah. She says you're gonna find the truth, but then also they're like, oh, do you know what's on these? And she's like, oh, no, I haven't seen them.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so how do you know what's on them
on
then?
There?
Yeah, but that's why we get the cutting back and forth between the documentarians doing their interviews and then the crew of Hell House making their content, because they had video cameras for security purposes placed all throughout the haunt. But then they also have like one of their crew members is kind of there, like he just like has a camera and he seems to be filming everything, and the justification we get for that is that they might make some like behind the scenes content for their website.
Yeah.
And then I think it kind of, because there's a point this character Paul starts talking about how, oh, I'm going to catch myself a ghost. So I think that's also kind of the justification, is that like he originally might have been doing it for that purpose, but then he kind of got into it and was like, ooh, I'm going to find something spooky in here.
Yeah.
So I do think some of the justification for the filming of within that group of people is a little bit weak.
Yeah.
But that's also just kind of like a flaw of found footage, and like you kind of just have to embrace it.
It's one of those things that like I always like, to me it's kind of a knock against like almost any found footage movie is, you know, at a certain point when everything's happening, you get to the point of like, why are we still filming?
Why are we still filming, babe?
Why are we still using the camera?
Drop
and there's been a couple,
cam.
like we talked about it with Rec, where the justification there is it's dark and it has night vision in the camera, so they're literally using it to be able to navigate
it's their
through
lifeline.
this apartment.
Yeah.
And I think they do a very similar thing in As Above, So Below, where it has a light on the camera, so they're using it to navigate, you know?
Yep.
And so, like, there are certain instances where, like, they kind of make more of a reason why, and it's more believable as to why. Things like this, though, especially the tail end of the movie.
Yeah.
It really falls off as to why we're still filming, or why we have filmed certain things.
Accept it and just sort of move on.
But yeah, because by this point you're over an hour into the movie and you're like, well, it's not too much more time investment to watch it anyway, so I'm just gonna see this
whatever.
one through. So, you know, and it's truly, it's not that big of a deal. It is just, it's one of those things that if you really get into found footage movies, it's like so easy to notice and pick apart.
Yeah.
The point where you're like, they should have stopped filming here.
Yep. Yeah, I think a good found footage movie comes up with a justification as to why they can't or they won't turn it off. And it doesn't even have to be anything crazy. It just, there has to be a reason, you know? And I think with this movie, honestly, one of my bigger knocks against it is that after Paul, who was the person who was filming for like their content, but then also like he was into this ghost thing, and then he started having weird experiences, and I think he kind of started to do it just as a way to like try to prove it to his friends that it was happening. So like all of that totally makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
I'm along for the ride. Yeah. Once he is no longer a character in the movie, it makes no sense to me why this other schmuck is like, hey, now I'm gonna pick up the camera.
Yeah, there's this whole extended thing where Paul like disappears.
Yes.
We see what happens to Paul,
but the group doesn't know what happened.
But the group doesn't know what happened. This is another one of my kind of gripes against this movie in particular, because they set this premise up before Paul gets taken, where Paul experiences something on the camera and then he makes everyone watch it and they all see what happens on the camera, and then they kind of try to like just talk it away or whatever. And we'll talk about that scene later. But this scene where Paul gets got. He wakes up, and in like sitting against the wall in his room, there's like this creepy lady. Yeah, just maybe sitting ghost there. Lady dead. Something or whatever. And I thought at first it was one of the scare actors just messing with him, and it was gonna be a fake out. But Paul gets like freaked out. He's like, what the hell? And the shot that we're having is from the camera underneath the blankets.
Yeah, he's like, he like hides underneath the covers.
Which is one of the funniest things.
Honestly, it's so doing. Real though. Yeah. I feel like that's what I would do too.
His fight or flight response said neither. Yeah. So he hides under the covers, and then it's doing the thing where he like periodically like looks out, and it's moved closer, and then when it finally looks out the last time, it's she's like right in front of him, and he gets grabbed. He like screams briefly, whatever. But then Tony, I guess, is the one who ends up coming into the room later, and he can't find Paul, and he grabs the camera.
Yeah.
And so Tony now kind of becomes the camera operator. And even if you want to justify it by being like, well, he's still filming because that's what Alex wants.
Yeah.
For the whole thing. That's fine. But nobody reviewed the footage to see what happened.
I mean, I guess to be fair, none of the rest of them really believed in any of the supernatural stuff. So why would they think to go back and watch it when they're all saying, well, Paul's just always been unreliable and he's probably off on like a bender or something.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they try to play it off as like, oh, he's just on a bender, or he's just screwing with us or whatever. But I just feel like if I'm in that position, my curiosity is going to be like, what was the last thing you even filmed on this thing?
Yeah.
And I'm going to look at it.
I mean,
and then I'm going to see that, and then I'm going to be like
uh-oh.
I don't even recognize that woman.
Yes.
So even if this was...
Who dat?
Yeah, even if this was a thing, and even if the ultimate result was, oh, he's just doing an elaborate prank. He's acting like he got. He'll show up later, right?
Yeah.
Nobody says anything about it. And then eventually he shows back up, and there's this whole thing or whatever. But again, because they set up the premise of weird thing happened to Paul, we're going to review the footage. All of this other weird stuff happens while Tony's holding it. And then they go down in the basement where the real scary stuff is.
Right.
And then Tony has this experience by seeing these like clown heads move on these dummies that they should not be able to turn on, whatever. And then when he looks back again, they're not looking at him anymore or whatever. Again, nobody reviews the camera footage.
They decide to give up on that.
In that specific instance, it then becomes like, why is nobody looking at this?
Yeah, it is funny to have, like, it honestly would have made more sense if they never reviewed any of the footage, because then you would just come up with a justification to yourself of like, they didn't have that idea or they didn't have a way to do it, whatever. But the fact that like sometimes they go back and review footage and then other times they don't, you're kind of left being like, okay, so because why?
I kind of get the intent from the first time they do it, right? It's to explain that like they all witness some weird stuff happening, but they're going to press on anyway. Also, they don't super believe that anything is like actually happening when they see this. And they kind of think Paul is just being Paul and being weird.
It's kind of one of those things where like they think Paul's pulling a joke on them. Best case scenario, Paul thinks they're pulling a joke on him, but that it might be something supernatural. So they kind of, there's sort of this uneasy, like, let's just continue on. We're all spooked out, you know?
But I think it would have been fine to not have them review it at all. Paul still believes that he's either being pranked by everyone or he did witness, like, a supernatural thing happening to him. And everyone else is just like, stop trying to screw with us, Paul.
Yeah.
Because then it really, to me, watching the movie, that sells to me any of the weird stuff that then happens is believable that they're just like, somebody's screwing with us.
Yeah.
Right? We're not even going to give it the time of day to look at it because it's obviously somebody screwing with us.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it is interesting because obviously just like in any, you know, supernatural haunted kind of movie, there's sort of this increase in the weird stuff. Like it starts out with minor things that you can explain away as, you know, just bumps in the night and, you know, little things that nobody being logical would immediately jump to, oh, this place is fucking haunted.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it kind of ramps up over time. And that's another thing with, in general, with like haunted movies, but especially with this one, where I'm kind of like, okay, at a certain point, like, I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that they do address that. I will say I've seen Hell House 2 and 3. I haven't seen the fourth one, which is Carmichael Manor. But they kind of explain this a little bit more in some of the other movies. But it's implied in this one that the reason that they are like so committed to this is because this is kind of like a breaking point for them in terms of their business, where either they make this work or nobody gets paid, and like Alex and Mac, who are the owners of it, literally go bankrupt and like lose everything.
Right.
And so that's the justification that we're provided as to like why even when everybody is truly very freaked out, they continue to press on.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. And like, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
But also at a certain point, like when you feel like your life is under threat, like I can't see it happening.
Well, I mean, I think this is like probably yours and my biggest like gripe with this is, so after Tony gets the camera, I kind of explained how like this whole big sequence happens with the clown heads that turn and everything. There's this recurring clown mannequin.
Oh, he's so spooky too.
Yeah, he's very spooky, and they do a really good job with it. This first clown is the one they explain that like when they're setting it up, they're going to chain them to this wall in the basement, and specifically they're having this issue where like the clown heads can't all face the same direction because like none of them can turn or whatever.
Yeah.
And we start getting this weird stuff where like somebody sees it and it's like definitely has its head turned, and it
even
shouldn't
though
be,
they've already established it can't do that.
Yeah. And then Paul has an encounter where he and I think Mac are the only ones that are home at the time at the hotel, and Paul's just walking around filming and he's looking for Tony, I guess, and he comes across this like hallway, and the clown dummy thing is just standing there.
Yeah.
And he thinks reasonably at first that this is Tony messing with
one
him.
of the other crew members put the outfit on.
And he's like, what are you looking at? Because he's not saying anything. And he like looks down like the stairwell or whatever. And then he aims the camera back at him, and now it's looking dead at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, why are you being weird? Whatever. And then he decides he's going to go back, and he goes to see Mac again, who's in the same spot that he left him in. He was like reading a book or something.
Yeah.
And when he rounds the corner, Tony's in there talking with Mac.
Yeah.
And he's like, how the fuck did you... And he runs back over there, and now the dummy thing is not there. He runs all the way down the stairs, and it's just sitting in its normal spot. Sitting in the normal spot. And then that leads to the scene where he shows everybody, and he's like, look, and they all are basically like, yeah, whatever, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Kind of a wild thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To like just kind of out of hand do or whatever.
Yep.
I do understand that they're like, Paul's probably screwing with us. And that, like, ultimately you could come to the conclusion that, like, Paul just got somebody that none of them knew, and he's playing a prank on him. Did some movie magic, stitched it together, whatever. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so, like, I kind of get that. But anyway, later on, this same clown mannequin is now standing at the bottom of the stairs to the sleeping quarters, like, where all the hotel rooms are upstairs, where they're all staying. And it's just standing there. And he and Mac are like freaked out. Paul and Mac are freaked out, and they kind of creep down the stairs. Mac hits it on the head, and he's like, it's just a mannequin. And they go to move it, but when they're going to do this, they find Sarah has, I guess, sleepwalked or something into a room downstairs, and she's just facing a wall. And they do this creepy effect where she's like mumbling, but I think they've reversed her speech. Yeah, I don't know if I've never looked into it further. But it definitely sounds weird. Like, it's definitely like altered in some way. It's not her just speaking quietly, because it sounds really weird. But they wake her up, and when they do this, they've like stopped looking at the clown thing or whatever, and when they turn back around, it's not there, of course. Right. So then they're like, Paul's screwing with us because Paul has disappeared at this point. And they're looking for him. They go all the way down to the basement. Freaky stuff happens. Tony sees on the camera the clown heads are all looking at them, and then he's like, oh no, get inside the walk-in fridge. And then they freaks out. They go back outside, and now Paul's sitting but like non-responsive against a wall. Anyway, all of this happens, and the next morning they're like having a big argument with Alex, and Tony's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Right. I'm not doing this anymore. And he's yelling and screaming. He's like, Paul is fucked up. Something is going on. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not doing this anymore. And he decides he's just going to leave the project, and he gives the camera to Mac. So Mac's now filming when this happens. Mac chases him outside, and he's like, just listen to what I have to say. And then we get a cut, and then we come back, and it's this like artsy kind of scene where Tony's just sitting in like a tall grass field, and he's like, I can't leave. You're right. And then Mac comes into the shot. So they've set up the camera on a tripod to film themselves having this moment.
This heart to heart. These are the moments that get me. Like, as the farther it goes on, I'm like, there's just no justification for why they would be filming this.
Yeah, and the only reason when you get to the heart of it is for the benefit of the audience, so that they can be like, yeah, Alex has this secret that he definitely hasn't told Paul. He hasn't told Sarah. Mac was the only one who knew about it, and now Mac is letting Tony in so Tony doesn't leave.
Right.
And this is the decision that makes it so Tony doesn't leave. And they don't explicitly say what it is in this scene. I guess the implication is like you said, this bankruptcy.
Yeah.
That I guess they explain in some of the other ones. I was confused by the end of it what this was.
It's interesting because, so not to get too in the weeds on this, but there is a director's cut of this movie that has a deleted scene where they fully explain it. But I guess maybe they felt like that was like too much exposition. So they like cut that out and left it vague. But then in the sequels, they like fully address it.
But
so
why?
It's like, I don't understand.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's the one piece of exposition you should have left into it. Because by the end of it, I'm like, what could he have possibly told Tony?
Yeah.
And Tony was like, whatever, I'll risk my life because I think something's going on in here. And then I find out that Alex is going to go bankrupt. I'm sorry, dude. You made a bad business decision.
He's also not going to get paid. Like,
but
Tony's not going to get paid.
I can go work at fucking 7-Eleven. I don't give a shit. I'll be alive.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the thing that I find interesting is that what we learn later on when we watch some of the other ones is that Alex made, like, it's not so much that the business was failing, but basically, like, he used business funds for an investment that failed wildly.
Yeah.
And so it got to a point where he's lost basically all of the business's money. So this haunt is the make or break of like, are we going to be able to recover?
He's underwater on this thing, and it's gotta work.
It's gotta work, And it also, like, it does indirectly affect everybody else because they all work for him, and Mac is like his partner in it. So like they're both gonna go bankrupt, and so there's kind of some tension of like, we're sort of pissed at Alex because he got us in this situation, but also like we're trying to look out for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, Alex is our friend, and, like, we want to do what's right for him. But, like, they left it so vague that after that scene, my legitimate thought as to why Tony was staying was Mac told him Alex had a terminal illness and was going to die soon. That's why he wanted all of this film. That's why he was obsessively writing stuff down in his notebook. That's why he wanted to do this with his friends and everything. I thought Alex was basically 1 foot in the grave.
Well, he was.
I mean, he was, but not how he thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I
love that.
I thought he was about to beef it big time.
I would really be curious to hear, like, what other people
me too.
took from that, because I watched these unprimed in order.
Yeah.
And I also was like slightly confused, but my initial instinct was it's got to be something money related.
Sure. That's I'm gonna say this. That's probably what most people would think watching this. I think I'm definitely in the minority of being like, so he's dying.
That's what I find so funny is that they have this like big thing of like, oh, we can't quit the project, and you're like, terminal cancer.
Oh my god. Mac knows Alex is about to just fucking beef it big time. And he's like, we got one last hurrah for him.
One last Hell House.
Even though Paul's fucking up and nobody's happy about it, but you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And also, the implication of that, my interpretation of it would have been fucked up because Alex, fine, he didn't tell Tony and Paul because he didn't tell Sarah, who's definitely like that seems fucked up. But you know, I was like, whatever, he's not me. So.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies where like I really, really enjoyed it on my first watch through of it when I wasn't like primed. Like I thought that like the scares were really fun and all of that. But on a rewatch and like trying to really kind of like break the movie down, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny, and that really only gets worse as they go along.
Well,
like,
I think inherently when you have like sequels to these things, because like you were like, yeah, there's like there's a 2, 3, and they just did a new one like earlier this year, and I was like, what else did they have to say?
Yeah, and they really take it in some wacky directions. But it's tough because like I think the plot was kind of weak from the get-go. Mm-hmm. It's perfectly serviceable as like a basic found footage idea.
I think it's fine for just a one-off.
But it doesn't hold up to scrutiny, so then when you try to add on to it, it's already on very shaky ground, and so your only option is just to get more and more ridiculous. And that's what they do, which like is fine. Like I think the sequels are entertaining, but they're not good movies.
Sure, yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, this one was all right.
This one, I mean, I still like it. I think it's a good entry into found footage as a genre. Yeah. I think if you're a found footage fan, there's stuff here to like. I think it's very entertaining and engaging. But yeah, just logically, it does not make a lot of sense.
No, I mean, I like it for the vibes of like, it's definitely a Halloween, you know, around that fall era. It's the end of the summer when the movie starts, you know, in August when they're starting the filming. Yeah. And by the end of it, they're doing opening night, which is around Halloween or whatever, early October, I think. And so it's definitely in that like... that slot of like Halloween horror movie vibes.
Which is fun. Yeah, because not every, you know, horror movie is explicitly Halloween related. So this is kind of a fun, like actually canonically Halloween tied movie. And, you know, ghost stuff works on me.
I think ghost stuff, like one of the reasons this movie isn't just like absolutely tanked for me is I like ghost and demon stuff, you know,
and it also genuinely scares me, and I really don't understand why, because like a serial killer is so much more like real and could actually happen to me, but that stuff like does not scare me at all. Like watching somebody get like tortured or whatever, I'm just like, whatever. A freaking ghost. I'm going to be unsettled, and I'm going to be like seeing shapes in my closet when I'm trying to go to sleep later. Like it just like unsettles me in a different way.
Yeah. One of the other things I want to touch on briefly here was they eventually do get to the scene of like what happened in the basement, because like a lot of this is like what happened inside Hell House on opening night, and there's a lot of talk about stuff that happened in the basement. When the crew first shows up there, they go down there and there's like, you know, pentagrams and all the satanic
like Bibles and
just burned Bibles all over the ground, and there's like a random heel shoe or whatever just on the ground, and so like, you know, it's like all weird, which I mean, I guess their thought was it's probably just like graffiti and again, I think this is one of those cool things that they do here, is that it's been abandoned, and there is graffiti like all over the place,
super rundown,
and it does logically that's what you would think. Oh, a bunch of punk kids, even if it was a group of Satanists, or, you know, whatever, that got in there and was like
doing whatever. Yeah, they think they're cool,
relatively harmless. Also, they just bought the property anyway, so now like those people can't show up anymore, and if they do, you know,
it's a crime.
That's a crime. You're trespassing. Also, that could be a different movie in and of itself, right? Like they've bought this place, and now the cult wants it back, kind of a thing, and they're having to hold out against this cult. It turns into an Odd Couple situation of like the friends who run the haunted house and the cult who established their base there. That would be great. I want to see that movie. But no, but we do eventually get like what happens in the basement, and listen, I'm always going to be the first person that says show less of the thing. Yeah. And I think this holds true in here. I'm kind of two minds about it, because you and I talked about it right after. And my thoughts on how they handled showing the basement are that they either didn't show enough, or we should not have seen what happened down there at all.
I agree. I personally think that we shouldn't have seen anything down there because I don't think that what they provided was particularly scary.
No.
And it had been worked up to the entire time of like, this is where...
This is literally the build-up. The entire movie is what happens in the basement. And what we get is a lot of horribly shaky cam footage that is like... stuttering and has like all these like artifacts and stuff, so you can like barely see what's happening. It's like 3 or 4 shots like total.
It's very short.
Yeah, and it's like you can like barely make out what's even happening. Like you can see there's definitely some like cultist dudes down there now. Yeah. Where they came from, nobody knows. You know, where did they come from? Where did they go?
Where did they come from? Cultist I Joe.
Yeah. The classic song. But like you can kind of see that, but like just for reference, they, I guess, kill one of the scare actors that is supposed to be down there. Yeah. A bunch of people die, I guess, in the trampling that happens from people getting out.
I think that's mostly what is implied in terms of the goers of like, I think it's just they basically did like a crowd crush kind of thing, trying to get out of the basement. Then the scare actor who was down there, she gets killed.
But you don't even like this is kind of my complaint with it, is like they show it but like also not really.
Yeah, they show the lead up to it.
Yeah, you kind of just see like a thing, like a figure approach her and she's like screaming. Yeah, and then we don't really see anything. Yeah, and like again, you know, I'm always the first to say show less of the thing because it makes it scarier. But I feel like I saw enough of it that I was like, it's just dudes in robes. Like I can't even tell that it's like demons or whatever. It's just you know what I mean? Or like if it's like they were kind of human shaped, I guess, but they were like taller, but they were so blacked out that it didn't even have that like uncanny effect of like The Conjuring 2 with the crooked man, where he's like, he's definitely human shaped, but he's like too long. You know what I mean?
He's a big boy.
Or like in one of the Annabelle movies, you know? That same thing where you're like, oh, that's a human shape, but like a fucked up human shape. So like you don't even really get that with it. But we talked about it, and I agree that like I think the way to handle it would have actually been to just not show the basement at all. It's similar to like Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, right? Like you never actually see her get stabbed. Yeah. And because you don't see her get stabbed, it is so much more horrible in your mind. Yeah. Right? Like the entire movie they're building up, oh, it was awful in the basement. It's terrible. Yeah. And then we get something that's kind of lackluster.
Yeah. I think that's the issue, is that if you're going to build it up, you either need to really deliver, or you need to just leave it a mystery. Yeah. Because also, like with found footage, fundamentally, you have this really iron tight excuse for not showing something, which is that, well, there weren't any survivors of what happened in the basement, so there's nobody to like say, like no one actually does know what happened down there. You know, I personally think they should have kept it vague, and then I think that would have been more scary, and let the viewer, you know, fill in the gaps of what it might be. Yeah, I mean, I do think that there are some good scares in this. Sure. That aside, you know, we already talked about some of them. Did you have a point that you felt was the scariest to you?
Actually, I think for me, the like scariest moment was probably, it's actually one of the first like weird stuff's happening here. Yeah. Paul is like filming himself and he's like mostly naked on his bed, and I don't know why he's filming this.
Yeah, he's just sort of having it. He's doing a video diary.
But they do the framing, the classic framing, where like he's really close to the camera and we can see all of this space behind him. Yep. But it's like in the dark because he's like getting ready to go to bed. And they're in this hotel, and so the only light out in the hallway is the light from like the red exit sign or whatever. And so you can kind of see like another doorway kind of lit up. And he's talking, and then you just see like, you don't even really see a full silhouette. You see a silhouette of what probably a woman with like crazy frizzy hair and stuff, kind of like moves into the frame
and just sort of lingers,
just standing there while he's talking. And then eventually he kind of like rolls over and he's like, Sarah, is that you? And then the figure just leaves. And he's like, are you sleepwalking? But like, we don't really get any resolution on it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was Sarah. He doesn't like seem to investigate it. And he gets got by another woman. So like, was it that person?
Yep.
There was also this weird shit with Sarah going on for basically the entirety of the movie. So it could have been
seemingly sleepwalking.
Yeah.
So.
Or getting possessed or who knows what, knows? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that was legitimately one of the scarier scenes. Because like, it's really early on. You're like, oh shit, are they about to like...
It's going to pop
Are they about
off?
to get somebody now?
Yeah, that's a really good scene. We've talked about some of the other good scares, like with the clown and then with Paul getting got and everything. I think that for me, one of the most effective tense sequences is that entire scene from Mac finding the clown at the base of the stairs up to the living quarters and then trying to, like, the tension of investigating it and realizing it's fake, and there's that brief like, ooh, okay, and then Sarah, and then turn around and it's gone, and then it's just like all chaos breaks loose, and like they really they don't let you up from that for a while. There's like a lot of running through the house and a lot of like panic and trying to figure out what's going on, and it just like made me clench the whole time because I'm expecting something else to happen. I think
that scene in particular, especially the beginning of it where they first find the clown standing at the base of the stairs and then they go down and he investigates it, that release kind of that you're talking about there, I think it's really effective because as the audience, we don't get that relief. We know that the clown is moving around on its own or whatever, and it's not anyone else. Right. But when they get the relief, it feels like, oh no, they messed up, because now they're going to be carrying this thing around and it's going to like come back to life and kill him or
now
something.
Just,
you know
like,
what I mean?
They're not taking it seriously anymore.
Their guard is like fully let down at this point.
Right.
So I think it's like super effective when they did that. So.
I'm going to avoid telling you all what the little plot twist at the end is, just in case there is anybody here who hasn't watched it and may want to. There is a little fun twist at the end that you may or may not see coming. Shall we go over our rating?
Absolutely. I think reflective of how we felt about this movie, I gave it an overall average of a 6.3, with my highest ratings being in entertainment and visuals. This movie almost scored all 6s for me. So...
mine was slightly lower at a 5.9. My highest score by a pretty good margin was entertainment, which I gave a 7.5.
Okay.
All the other categories got either 6s or 5s for me. And that's what I like about this movie, is that I think it is genuinely really entertaining and engaging and interesting. And I think especially on the first watch, there's kind of this... They do a great job of setting up this mystery that actually makes you want to finish the movie because you want to know what the hell happened in Hell House.
Yeah.
So I think it is genuinely very entertaining. I think my score is a little bit lower now that I've seen it a couple of times. So I think the novelty has worn off a smidge.
Yeah.
But I still find it to be a very tense watch. Like, even though I know where the scares are, they're still pretty spooky and well crafted.
Oh, yeah.
So... 5.9, make what you will of that. But I still think it's a good movie.
Total for us, though, it's a 6.1.
6.1.
Yeah.
Slightly above average.
Yeah. So, it's definitely not a skip. Now, I haven't seen 2, 3, or Carmichael Manor.
And there's going to be another one next year called, like... Hell House Lineage or something like that.
They gotta stop.
Yeah, they're really cranking them out.
It's not that good of a series, guys. Like, it's not. You know what I mean?
I will say, if you want more closure on the plot holes, then it's worth watching 2 and 3.
I'm going to.
Go into especially 2.
Yeah.
With the knowledge that it is a severe nosedive in terms of acting,
Good.
Cinematography.
I would expect nothing less from a sequel to this movie.
But they address some things. There is because originally my understanding is that the person who wrote and directed it, he conceived of this as a trilogy. So like the first 3 are very much interconnected. Wow. And I don't know what's going on with Carmichael Manor and like the new stuff that they're doing.
We talked about this very briefly after we watched the first one, and I was like, that fourth one's got to be some revisionist history bullshit, probably, right? Like where they're gonna start dropping like, this is what actually happened all those years ago, even though people in the town talked about in the first one what happened in this.
Oh, and back before the town, this was where witches got burned, or don't
listen to her. She doesn't know anything.
Yeah. But anyway, so he did conceive of it as a trilogy. So there are things like the first 3 are interconnected, very much so, and kind of fill in some of the gaps. So, especially if you like found footage, give them a try. They're on Shudder. They're all on Shudder. What, Prime, I think, too?
The first one is available on Prime.
They're pretty easy to find.
Every other one you have to buy and rent right now. But they're all if you have a Shudder subscription, because I guess after the first one, Shudder was like, I gotta get my hands on that.
They were like, we own this now.
So they're all Shudder originals now or whatever. Yeah. And so they're all on Shudder if you have that.
Yeah.
Which now is the perfect time of year to have a Shudder subscription.
Yeah.
They have like the Halloween stuff and like all this. It's it's a horror subscription service. So like they're
not a sponsor, but they should be. Call us.
Yeah, call me.
We love you. Anyway, you got anything else?
No, I just wanted to say we're getting even closer to the live show.
Yep, we're doing our first live show, in case you forgot. That is going to be on October 30th at 7 p.m. at Authentic Brewing Company in Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
We're going to be screening a surprise horror movie that we're keeping a secret, and then doing a live episode recording afterwards about that movie. Y'all are more than welcome to come and join us. It's also a great little brewery.
Yeah.
You'll have a good time.
Yeah, they got some good stuff there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want more information about that, you can go onto Facebook and look up our page, or Authentic Brewing. I think they co-hosting an event there, so you can get all the details you want there. Yep.
Our Facebook is Love at First Fright. We're also on X and Instagram at First Fright Pod. We also have an email address if you'd like to send us any feedback or suggestions. That is firstfrightpod@gmail.com.
As always, scare well. See you next time.
Bye.